Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on Azure Windows Virtual Desktop Solution with Storage Optimization. I'm Ananya Sharma, your host for the day. I would like to introduce our subject matter experts for today. We have Mr. Jonathan Limbo, who is the Cloud Service Director for APAC from SoftwareOne. And we have Mr. Hani Azam, who is the Cloud Solution Director for Global Customers in APAC from SoftwareOne, from Microsoft, sorry. I would just request Mr. Jonathan and Mr. Hani to unmute themselves and say a quick hello.
Hi, everyone.
I also would like to guide you about the tool to have an interactive experience during the webinar. The first one is please keep yourself on mute during the webinar. And if you want to ask or if you want to say anything to the presenter, please raise your hand. We'll unmute you and you can ask the questions. You can also type down your question in the Q&A and chat section below, and will be taken up during the Q&A pit stop. Today, we will be covering how SoftwareOne can help you in making Windows Virtual Desktop a real success. Before we begin, let me start with one of the poll question, and this will be helping us to understand better the audience reach before I hand over to Jonathan. Please fill in your current role. I will just extend the time of the poll because I think people are still joining in. So let's wait for a couple of minutes more.
Ananya, should we just start?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'm just ending the polling.
Thank you.
So we have IT managers and decision makers available with us. So now I will hand over to Jonathan quickly.
Thanks, Ananya. Appreciate that. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Today we'll be talking about the Azure Windows Virtual Desktop and some of the use cases and how best to deploy that in an optimized way. So you get some efficiency. There's different ways to deploy it. I myself, I manage the cloud services business in SoftwareOne, and I've got with me today guest speaker Hani. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us from Microsoft. And yeah, let's get started with the presentation. So,
Thank
Ananya.
you.
Thanks, Hani. Will you share the next slide? Thanks so much. Great. So just a little bit of background about who we are before we go straight into the content. I myself, I'm about 20 months now in SoftwareOne. I actually came in through an acquisition called RightCloud. And we help customers with the customer journey to cloud. Azure is an incredibly powerful platform. And our role is to ensure that you have a customer journey that's smooth, you have a great customer experience on the Azure platform. And so that business, or that line of business is called the Cloud Services Practice within SoftwareOne. We're also a very strong partner, the highest tier partner, an Azure Expert MSP, a gold partner of Microsoft. And we'll walk through how we have a bundled offering around Windows Virtual Desktop to help with that customer journey, making sure that you've got a great customer experience. So, next slide. Thanks. So if you can build the slide out, please, Ananya. If you don't know much about SoftwareOne, just taking a little bit of perspective, or maybe you do know SoftwareOne, but the likelihood is your understanding and a lot of the SoftwareOne's legacy is around 30 years within the Microsoft ecosystem. Specifically, you might know them from software licensing expertise and reselling of Microsoft licenses. But in fact, there's a broad portfolio, especially when it comes to services. And that is now the priority of the organization to drive those customer outcomes through services. So we have a large customer base as a result of that history. We've got about over 65,000 customers, over 5,500 technology experts. So our services organization is quite large. And we're a global organization. We're headquartered in Switzerland. We're a public organization. We went public last year, and we're in over 90 countries. So wherever you are around the region, the likelihood is we have an office, we have a team that can help you locally, while we can scale regionally and globally as well. Next slide. Thanks, Ananya. So I myself came from RightCloud. I was the co-founder and CEO. Now I manage the cloud service business. But if you look at the right, if you know SoftwareOne from its historical legacy business, which is its ecosystem of Microsoft and selling Microsoft licenses, you can see that there's a strategic mandate around services, and we have that organically, and we augment that through acquisition. For example, through B&W, they've done over 40 SAP migrations. In Intergrupo, we have over 1,600 engineers there that do application modernization, DevOps, analytics, data lakes. And most recently, in July, we announced the acquisition of GorillaStack, which is cost optimization and cloud automation. So hopefully, if you do know SoftwareOne, you can see the portfolio that we have and the expertise that we've come from and how we're scaling into different capability sets. And today, I just want to introduce Hani, who's been a good friend of mine for quite some time now. And I've known Hani for a couple of years, who has worked in some of the largest cloud transformations on Azure. And he has made sure that through any workload, it starts with understanding the nature of the customer, what they have, and where they're going to, the idea of how to get there, making sure that that change management process is a smooth one, and ensuring that the customer experience throughout this incredible platform of Azure is very, very smooth. And so today, Hani will be talking about Windows Virtual Desktop. And so I'll turn it over to you now, Hani. I guess you're the star of the show, so over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very kind words, Jonathan. And thank you for hosting me and hosting my colleague Ravi, who's also joining us on the call here. Great pleasure meeting you all on the call. I think there's a Q&A option, so please, during the session, if you have any questions, type in your questions and let us know. Would love to answer all of them and help you get started as fast as possible. One of the things just I wanted before I start, and if Ananias, if that's an option, can I just ask a question? How many of the audience are already familiar with Windows Virtual Desktop and have some sort of a VDI or a virtualization desktop solution running in their environment today? Can be on premise, can be on the cloud. Is there a way just for people just to say yes, yay or nay on this? Or raise hands?
I just do
thumbs
that.
up, thumbs down. Amazing. We tried to keep it fairly interactive, so just let us know, please. I'll get started. So let's move back. Ananya, I took control of your screen. I hope that's okay. I won't press on anything, just move the slides. I think it will be easier for everyone.
No issues. I have just given you the control.
All right, I appreciate it. So I think today, and especially with everything that's going on with COVID and how it in a way forced our customers to accelerate their transformation in a way that it has not been seen before. And I think Satya, even in most recent earnings call, was talking about how lots of companies today manage to do the work that would take them 2 years to do in a span of 2 months and even less. Right? And I feel this was a great opportunity for all of the technology companies and all partners and great partners of ours like SoftwareOne to really step up and be that first technology responder to our customers out there. And I love working with SoftwareOne specifically because they have great knowledge of their customers already. So they understand their licensing, they understand the sort of the Microsoft lingo, which really helps when it comes to the technology and the solution piece, which is now they've developed incredible capabilities in to speed up the discussion and the execution, right? Because they know what you're entitled, the discounts, the different Windows, Office 65 license, etc., that you're entitled to. Henceforth, you don't have to worry about procuring anything. They can facilitate this, plus their strong technical and solutioning teams can start enable some of the solutions, some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I think on that working with a lot of customers today is that when you look from remote teamwork to sales to customer service to building a critical infrastructure and security, we and our partners working very closely to our customers today and helping them adapt and stay open for business in a world that is remote everything, right? And I think we're seeing this pattern play across industries. We don't see many customers that I've worked with, from banking, from retail, from healthcare, really transforming their strategy as much as trying to accelerate the execution of it, right? And I think, as they say, that necessity is the mother of all inventions, and enabling remote work, enabling employees to communicate more effectively while saving costs, while providing business continuity and staying secure and resilient, is really what majority of our customers aim to do. And I think Windows Virtual Desktop and virtualization is really at the center of that. If you look at some of the scenarios that virtualization would help you with, you have, whether you are looking to have more secure access to your data organization resources and you want to provide that in a compliant way. If you're looking for increased elasticity for your workforce and providing that flexibility, and in a way now it's a mandated flexibility to work remotely, to work from home.
Sorry, the screen is, are you sharing anything in your screen? We can only see your video.
Yeah, I'm on there is a slide. There should be a slide.
Yeah, we just got the slide back. All right, please continue. Sorry for the interruption.
So maybe Ananya, do you mind just going to the previous slide for a second?
Yeah, sure. Just a sec.
Sure. Thank you. So maybe it's not a good idea for me to request for control. Are you able to see the screen now, everyone?
No, it went away now. It went away now.
Not yet, Hani, but if it's easier, I can share it. Do you want?
Yeah,
okay.
If you can share from your side, that would be awesome. I don't know why it keeps. Is it visible for everyone now?
Yes.
Now it is. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. How good? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay.
It's
this
good
is
now.
why the team did this preparation for this session, and I skipped it. I was overconfident, and I'm paying the price of my overconfidence. So apologies for the technical glitches. So I was mentioning some of the virtualization scenarios, and that we're seeing our customers really benefit from. Was wrapping up on the piece around employee specific needs, whether it is. We see customers now, they want to enable bring you on devices and mobile staff, and even for specialized workloads where we have engineers, data scientists running GPU heavy workloads, and obviously there's no way they're going to bring this big computer or server that have at work to home. So this is where virtualization and specifically remote desktop scenarios become really, really helpful. If you may, Jonathan, apologies for that. If you may just move to the next slide for me. Thanks a lot. So why desktop virtualization? And I've haven't seen the results, but just as a level setter, it's been looked upon as a solution for enabling central management and security of your users desktops, and it's a way for IT management to actually reduce the overhead in terms of they don't necessarily need to ensure that each and every laptop or desktop their users have needs to be secure and well managed. Actually, you have this thin client. It can be an HTML5 enabled browser. It can be your mobile phone or a desktop that you use to connect to the more high performant server. Now, this approach and the beauty of it is actually separates the operating system from the data and the apps, from the local hardware. So then you're running everything, separately on a remote server. And now the main appeal is that you can separate your compute environment from user devices so that the risk of confidential information being left on a personal device is greatly reduced. So you think about it, you can make sure that your virtual machines are running in a close proximity to the different apps and services that you provided. So they're all hosted in the same location. And then you can connect and this can be in your data center or on the cloud. And then the user have the freedom to connect from any device over the internet or from over a secure connection, and they don't no longer have to worry about these devices as long as the network connection is secure. It works. This is all the IT have to worry about. But you've really decoupled that your application layer, your hardware layer, and from the end users' requirements and the access that they need to get to these different applications. And this has been quite expensive to set up, right? And this is why Windows Virtual Desktop and running on Azure is actually, in a way, democratized in this whole process, because now you can spin the infrastructure that is holding your virtual desktop environment. You can spin up and you can spin the servers, as many of servers you need. And we work very closely with you on sizing, on the right server configuration for you. And then you have the virtual desktop layer, where the actual control plane and the required service have already been created for you, right? So this used to be a very tedious task and I've seen there's a lot of IT administrators that need to go and create this environment. Now it's already configured securely and as a managed service for you by Microsoft, right? So this is really the biggest point on this whole discussion, is that now how quickly you can spin this up and down, and the elasticity that the cloud provides becomes something that you can do within an hour. And I've seen banks across the region in more that have already, and I mentioned banks because usually FSI are the most highly regulated environments and have the most secure requirements, security requirements out there, being able to spin up a complete Windows Virtual Desktop environment with the underlying infrastructure, with enabling secure connection for remote desktops and remote users in a matter of weeks. Right, so it's really a great solution. Now, what really differentiates Microsoft from others, Jonathan, if you may just proceed to the next slide, I'll be grateful for that. No, one more for me. Okay, there was a slide on multi-sessions. Maybe that's a little bit outdated, the deck, but let me point to that. Is the ability for multiple users to be able to actually connect on the same virtual machine. And this is a very important value proposition, that an organization can have multiple users access the same virtual machine while reducing the cost on maintaining the many VM licenses. And these sessions are isolated from each other, which gives a higher security and privacy, right? So if you have users today who are, for example, you have users of Word, Excel, and others, you don't need to have a separate VM for each one of those. Right? You can all be, or VM instance to be precise. You can actually all of them be connected to the same VM instance and having a multi-session that is only provided by Windows 10 at the moment. And this is quite of a unique differentiator. On the slide that Jonathan has at the moment, which is Apologies, and one more for me. Yeah, thank you, sir. So we talk a little bit about what is Windows Virtual Desktop running on Azure, right? So we mentioned VDI, we mentioned this multi-sessions and the need for it and the motivation behind it. The Windows Virtual Desktop is really the fully managed desktop virtualization solution in the cloud. So the good news is that all of your apps and devices will work with it, and you can whether devices to connect to it, apps that are running on your on-prem desktop can now run in the WVD or Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and you can access those remotely. And as you can expect, we have very full feature native client for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, as well as HTML5 support, so you can access remote desktops and application from almost any modern browser out there, right? And this is really the beauty of that. In addition to this, if Jonathan, if you go to the next slide, is the security, right? So this is well integrated with your AD environment. You can do things like reverse connect, Azure AD Authentication. You can have the use or leverage AD joint virtual machines as well. So not just the users, but the machine themselves. And this is very well linked to the Microsoft 365 security features like conditional access, multi-factor authentication, and RBAC, role-based access control. Jonathan, if you may, one more. Awesome. Now, this is an important slide just to think about for a second, and I think Jonathan will share the deck with you afterwards. That Windows Virtual Desktop, as I mentioned, there's the infrastructure, the IaaS, so to speak, the different virtual machines. And those we have over 60 regions today, right? Azure data centers out in the world. Now, however, the control plane is in those locations that you can see on the map. So there is a control plane in Singapore, there's a control plane in Australia. This is the Windows Virtual Desktop environment itself, right? So why is that important? Because if you're a user today and you're connecting remotely, let's say from Vietnam, to where the Windows Virtual Desktop environment is hosted, let's say in Singapore, you want to ensure there's minimum latency, right? You want to make sure that connectivity is optimum. And this is why we actually work with you to ensure that there is an experience estimator. So we're able to tell you very, very clearly what is the latency that you would expect if you're connecting from that location, and henceforth, where is it best to host your Windows Virtual Desktop environment today? Ravi, do you want to add anything on this one, or from your perspective?
In the current slide, Hani?
On the control plane, the previous slide.
Yeah, so you covered pretty much everything. What I just wanted to cover is that more and more regions are being added. So if you look at the triangles, those are the control planes. Basically, those are the locations where you can choose to store your metadata. Europe is, planned in the next few weeks. Currently, only available location is in US for storing your metadata, but Europe will roll out in a few weeks, followed by Asia and a few other regions. The circle that you see are gateway services, essentially the closest entry point for WVD services for end users connecting from internet or from various office locations. And this is expanding every day. I mean, this slide is actually pretty outdated. We have added twice the number of gateway locations as of today. and we have more and more resilient locations. So you pick a region and you will have a nearby gateway location available for you to deploy and consume with more performance.
Thank you, Robbie. And I think that's a great point. These locations get added on monthly basis. So what I encourage everyone just to look at is and again, the presentation will be with you, to get to access that experience estimator that will be able to tell you what is the best location for you to host your service, your WVD environment today, and what kind of latency to expect as well. Thank you, Robbie, for this. Do you mind, Jonathan, progressing to the next one? Yeah, this is great. So one of the things that I wanted just to maybe to sum up before I give an opportunity for Robbie just to talk a little bit about maybe a level deeper on the architecture, just to help you visualize how the service would look like. And if there are any questions on the chat, happy to also take them now. So a couple of high-level pointers, right? Just and also more wrapping up the previous points, right? We're providing a virtualization infrastructure as a managed service, which you can see here on that piece that it says managed by Microsoft, right? Which is including everything you need and traditionally would have had to do to set up a Windows Virtual Desktop Service environment. And this makes it a very cost-effective, right? Comparing to scaling up your traditional Windows Virtual Desktop environment in your own data center. And at the same time, you can actually extend the remote work infrastructure while keep the operations at a lower cost, right? So companies today, especially if you are in a company that is using Windows 10 Enterprise, that has Microsoft 65, you have much bigger incentive to actually shift, because from a licensing perspective, and this is something that SoftwareOne can definitely help with, you're already covered, right? And you enable you to actually make that move swiftly. Another driver for Azure Windows Virtual Desktop is that organizations can also have more control, and we talked a little bit about the applications and the data, and while enabling your employees to access these resources from your own device. And this is something that traditional VDI or RDS environment can also provide, but again, the cost advantage here is a big differentiator. And then if you combine security and the Active Directory piece and RBAC, access controls, what am I missing? Multi-factor authentication, it actually creates this winning combination for you, right? So Ravi, maybe I'll pass it to you for a few minutes, and I wanted just to maybe give a quick architectural review, and then go a level deeper on how, when you have a Windows Virtual Desktop architecture, what is that authentication and flow of and the connectivity from a user to the environment, and what goes internally. Ravi, I'll pass to you. And Jonathan, I think we'll split the discussion into two. We'll have this big piece here, but there's another architectural diagram that would be great if you can present it from your end. Ravi, I'll pass to you.
All right, so can you advance to the architecture slide?
Do you mind to do just an overview? Because I love the building blocks, and then we can...
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's go back to the old slide. All right.
Yes.
So essentially, when it comes to WVD, there are three major components to it. The far left side of it is the client component that represents the entire list of clients, the form factor of devices that we support, like Hani mentioned a few moments ago. And then the middle part, which is the PaaS service, which the WVD service itself that Microsoft provides. Microsoft provisions and manages it on behalf of the customer, and it exposes certain settings for customers to configure, but 99% of the work as well as configuration, availability, and everything is taken care by Microsoft. So the middle box represents the Azure WVD service. The far right side is what actually customers' responsibility is. So this represents Azure subscription. It represents the, let's start from Active Directory. So the identity portion that the customer needs to set up. So if you are an Office 365 customer, you already have an Active Directory infrastructure that is synchronized from on-premise to Azure AD, and it is ready for authentication. If not, then you will have to set it up. Then on top of it, you will have to create virtual networks in Azure, which will house all the the virtual machines, Azure virtual machines that act as the WVD VMs. So that the customer will need to take care. And obviously, talking about virtual machines, customer will also need to manage the images. So if you are not familiar with the concepts of VDI, the image here just means a template operating system that has all the required applications and everything pre-built in and ready for usage. So that image is customer's responsibility. And then to the other portion, which is apps, basically how you want to deliver the apps so that the end users can consume it. Apps, there are multiple ways to deliver apps in WVD. So it is customer's responsibility to pick one or more options to deliver the apps, make sure they are up to date, make sure they are all patched and working and everything. So as you can see, Microsoft provides the service in the middle, while the clients are easily downloaded and installed by end users themselves. And the administrators themselves will need to just take care of the far right side of the box, which represents the entirety of WVD infrastructure. So do we, Hani, do we have the slide where we talk about the flow?
Yes, I hope so.
This is the.
Let me just, one thing, Jonathan, is there a way just to, or Ananya, just to go to exit the presentation mode, and there is a slide with a more of an architectural nature, or I can just share my desktop. That will make, especially because we want to do a demo as well. Is that okay if I just share my desktop?
Sure.
Okay.
So maybe, yeah.
I just stopped sharing. You can share it.
Awesome. Let me share my desktop. Okay. Clearly, we did not rehearse this. So just give a second. I am a bit have not.
Or I can share my screen if you would like.
Yeah, I'm just struggling with Zoom controls here. Well, let me try one more time. Here we go. I should be able to do that. Okay. Okay, you guys can see the screen?
Yep. So can we go full screen? Presentation mode, please. All right. Thank you. So, so I know at first blush, this looks like a really complicated slide. Actually, let me assure you, this is more of the wiring in place for the previous slide. So the left-hand side still represents the clients that are connecting from offices or their own home networks, etc. The middle pane, the blue box where it says Windows Virtual Desktop Pass, that is the representation of WVD service provided by Microsoft. And then the bigger box to its right, called labeled as subscription VNet, that represents the customer's subscription on the whole. So essentially,
which is the part that the customer will be managing themselves, right? That's the, we give them this part
yes,
to
that is
manage,
correct.
and we manage the part is this Windows Virtual Desktop PaaS. This is what we offer as a managed service, which historically used to be a big pain to set up and to manage for a lot of the IT administrators.
Absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely. So historically, the customers would have to set up the middle part, which is the management, the service itself, and they will have to set up the right side portion, which is the virtual machines, images, etc., and then the clients as well. So it's entirely customer's responsibility in legacy model, whereas WVD takes that everything off and allows the customers to focus purely on the virtual machines, the operating system in it, and the apps in it, and storage and other things. So let me walk through what a typical user experience looks like, and I'll probably, if we have a couple of minutes extra, I'll show a quick demo as well. So have a look at the box at the left-hand side bottom, where there is a line, blue line that originates with label 1A. So this is essentially what happens when a user, end user, launches the app, and they will click on something called as subscribe, and they will be prompted for authentication. This authentication prompt actually takes the path of 1A that reaches Azure Active Directory. Now, Azure Active Directory can be configured to authenticate simply with username password, but that's not secured by default. So usually customers enable multi-factor authentication there. And multi-factor authentication can be, and most likely should be, combined with conditional access, which is our Azure Active Directory's machine learning based challenging system, where we define factors such as when users come from internet, prompt for multi-factor authentication. When users come from office network, do not. So those type of conditions can be met. So that's the first layer of security. Once the user is authenticated, then the line label 2 is where it starts. The client actually makes a connection to the box, the octagon that has the arrow marks, which is the Azure Traffic Manager, the global load balancer service in front of WVD. It makes a connection. Now, what the Azure Traffic Manager does is to redirect the users to the nearest gateway location. Remember the map that Hani splashed? So that, let's say I'm connecting from Singapore, the user will always be connected to the gateway service in Singapore region. Now, the connection in the service is made to a component called RD Web. So it's short form for Remote Desktop Web Service. This is the service that provides the dashboard that the users will see, and all the assignments, apps, and the desktops that are assigned to them by the administrator. So once they make a connection to the RD Web, in the backend, the RD Web component actually talks to the component called RD Broker, which is basically the brain of the service. So this RD Broker service essentially looks up the database at the bottom, the Azure SQL database, to see what are the apps and the desktops that are assigned to the end user, and it returns it back to the user. So the user will, end result, see a list of apps that they can launch and the desktops that they can launch and connect. All right. Now, once that is there, as an end user, I will click on a desktop icon so that I can connect to a desktop, right? So that is the line labeled as 3 that again goes through the Azure Traffic Manager Global Load Balancer, which redirects it again to the nearest gateway. So the RD gateway that I was talking about. And RD gateway is basically a component that receives RDP connection. The line 3, label 3, is basically RDP over HTTPS. So that is the connection encryption and added layer of security. So it does not use your well-known port 3389. It actually uses 443. So no ports need to be, or no holes need to be punched in into the firewall. So you can use the well-known 443 port, and the connection is secure. The connection terminates in RD gateway, and because users don't know which end computer they are going for, in the backend, the RD gateway component is talking to RD broker. Again, the brain of the operations. RD broker is just going to look at, has existing connections, connection 5, from the bunch of virtual machines, what we call as WVD virtual machines. These virtual machines will tell them how many users are connected to each of them and how much capacity they have to the RD broker component. So RD broker component says that, okay, Ravi is connecting, and let me see which VM has capacity, and it will instruct that particular VM to make what is called as a reverse connect. So this is the additional layer of security in terms of connectivity, where a component from the virtual machine makes a one-way connection labeled as 7 to the RD gateway. So completing the circuit. So connection number 3 and 7 happens in opposite direction, and the circuit completes in RD gateway, so that the user does not know which computer they are connecting to, what is the name, etc. So it all taken care by the system. And that also adds a layer of security in terms of obfuscating the names, IP addresses, and everything from the end user perspective. So this connection, when it establishes, the next automatic action is to authenticate. So do you see the line again? There is no actually line indicating activity. So the session host, the bunch of icons labeled as session host in the backend will make a connection to Active Directory. If you see the far right side, there is an icon called Active Directory that essentially will be connecting and looking at authenticating. So it's a typical Active Directory user authentication session where user will be prompted, user enters the credential, and the user will be authenticated. Once the user is authenticated, there is an agent in WVD called FSLogix. Unfortunately, we don't have much time to go through FSLogix, but that's
when are you going to talk about FSLogix and why is it important?
Oh, that's the crown jewel of WVD. Believe me, that's what sets us differentiation from all the other players in the market. FSLogix is basically, think of it like the Swiss knife of performance improvement, application delivery, your security, etc. So for this purpose of flow, let me continue with this. The FSLogix agent in the virtual machine is going to look up and say that, okay, this user's profile is stored in, it makes a connection number 8 to a storage. It can be any storage, so that supports SMB connection. So it makes a connection, it reads the profile. Now, FSLogix, the beauty of it is, it stores the user profile in the form of a VHD file. So that when a user logs into a VM, basically it copies or it mounts remotely the VHD file in the local VM where the user is logging in, and it redirects all the profiles. So net, the user experience is that when they log in, all their customization, all their profile data, everything feels like as if it is locally available. And as a user, when I log in to say, today I'm logging into VM3, and tomorrow I'm logging into VM5, the process is same. And as a user, I would not see any difference at all. I will have all my customizations, all app installations, everything in place. And essentially, it preserves it. And if you are familiar with roaming profile, it is something like that, but it is completely different from it. So that's essentially the nutshell of how a user connection works. And before I switch from this slide, let me also talk about a little bit about the additional icons that you see on top of the session host, where you see management UI, monitoring, reporting, log analytics. So monitoring and
Very
reporting.
important for our administrators as well on the call.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the power of WVD really shines through in how much data that you can glean from the users. The management UI provides you capabilities such as broadcasting messages to the end users who are logged in, looking at who are all the sessions that are established, logging them off remotely, providing them support, all those capabilities. And more capabilities are coming in the next few weeks. You'll be able to do scale in and scale out from UI. You'll be able to attach apps using a feature called MSIX App Attach, which basically provides you the capability of not even having to install the apps locally in the image itself, which means that you can create an app package and assign it to users. And when the user logs in, just like the profile disk that is getting attached, the apps will register and become available for the duration of the user session. And when the user logs off, the apps will be gone. So those kind of fantastic features are coming in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. Monitoring and reporting, essentially built-in Azure Monitor provides you all the information that you need for end-to-end tracking, the duration, those kind of aspects. If you want detailed information, which most of the companies need, you have the log analytics capability. So it's a agent-based service. You can install the agent in all the session hosts, basically the virtual machines, and you will be able to get information such as how long the users were logged in, what apps they launched, and those type of analytics information can be gotten from log analytics service. So I don't want to talk too much about the rest of the things. Just to complete the picture, if you see the bottom, there is something called as customer on-prem network and express route. So this represents the true power of WVD. So during the COVID times, all the users were scrambling to connect to the on-premise network to continue working, but they were forced to take VPN. And as you can imagine, VPNs in most of the companies are built for like 30% of the users or even less than that. So they got overwhelmed. And with this model of Express Route and WVD, they can basically continue working from home and have access to on-prem network, on-prem apps from the WVD virtual machines. So those are some of the things that I wanted to note. Oh, and the security aspect of it. Essentially, the storage, you can control the encryption in the storage side of the profile as well as the virtual machine storage. You can control what RDP properties are exposed for the users and so on and so on. So there are tons of features, and unfortunately, we are very short on time. So, Hani, if you would like, I can show a demo, but you can take it over.
Can I just sorry, Hani, and
Sure.
thanks for that. Just given the time, because we have 6 minutes left, can I just share one other piece of it before we go to the demo?
No, I think that's exactly what was the next step. So please go ahead, Jonathan. I'm going to stop sharing from my side.
Thank you, my friend. And I will only take 2 slides to present, and then we hopefully will have some time for some Q&A. So just let me know when that comes up.
I can see it now.
Okay, let me go full screen. Is that, oops,
I think just go to the presenter view. That will be easier for
Yeah.
you, just for us to see the full screen.
Got it.
Clear.
All right. So again, I'm just gonna, just in the interest of time, maybe go through just 2 more slides, and we can go through a demo and Q&A. And you can see there's so many advantages of adopting Windows Virtual Desktop. So think about what you do today and potentially how you've created your BCP strategy or your work from home strategy, and think about the user experience and how quick you can scale and how flexible you can be with a WVD with all the feature sets around security control. And when it comes to things like, I've seen use cases for BFSI and even the BPO industry, where it's more the security aspect that's driving it, as opposed to a different way from working from home. So the other portion I just wanted to add to that architectural overview is how to optimize the storage. So there's many ways that you can deploy that, even on Azure. So in Azure, what we have from a solution perspective is a software-based NAS or soft NAS that sits on top of the Azure platform. The value that that has, especially when you're working from home and you're trying to get to your home directories or your file shares, is that it decreases the cost of the storage that sits on Azure, but more importantly, can improve the user experience by improving the performance. How it does that is it's a software layer that sits on top of the Azure infrastructure, and it improves the I/O by sitting on many VMs underneath and using the software to be able to cluster all of that to improve that performance, while using technology or traditional NAS technology to be able to use things like dedupe to reduce the storage footprint. So in effect, by using this solution, and it's perfect for WVD as you're working from home and you want the best enterprise application performance, well, you'll be able to get that via your storage. So there's not many things that you can do that will both increase performance and decrease your costs, but this will above and beyond what you already get from the Windows Virtual Desktop and the Azure platform. So that's available as a standard architecture. Again, WVD will work without it, but this gives you the magnitude of efficiency of about 50 to 80% improvement in storage costs, as well as application performance, depending how you deploy it. So that's if you have any questions or you want to understand and you want to try, then that we'll send out how to reach out. But please keep in mind that you have this platform, and depending on how you deploy, you can deploy it in a more efficient way with better performance. And yeah, just last of all, just the last slide. How can you get started? How can we make it easier for you?
I think
So,
one working with you for sure. So why don't you run through this? I think it's a great differentiator for SoftwareOne, and I'd love it if you can walk us through that, how we can get started.
yeah. Thank you, Hani. So how can we get you started so you can experience that value, have a very smooth customer journey? So we've talked about a lot, depending on the use case and what drives you. We've tried to make it an easy customer journey. So we have a structured engagement where we'll do the initial workshop with you, with the specific users, understanding what standard operating environment you have. And that current analysis of your end user computing, that as is state, will map the to be state or the design of how we're going to do the setup or the implementation. And that might mean different things depending on if you've already started, for example, on Azure, do you have Active Directory? Will you need a site-to-site VPN? Is ExpressRoute required? So there are elements of that where we need to do an understanding or a workshop to map the optimal state. But essentially from there, then we get, and you may have different image designs or different standard operating environments, but we will go through that process before we do the deployment and the support. So again, you can start as small as 25 users, but we've tried to make the barrier to entry just to get started, just so you can see that user experience fairly quickly, very consumable. So 15,000 for the professional services. We create 2 golden images for you for your standard operating environment, do the onboarding, do the drive the workshops, and we do the Azure estimation for you, and then do the implementation. Now, again, you may have some custom requirements. So this is just a standard to get you started. So if there's anything that's custom, maybe you have a very heavy graphics or GPU workloads, so you need something a bit more custom, or you need Active Directory, or you need site-to-site VPN. So there's other elements that we can, of course, accommodate to, but hopefully this just gets you started very quickly and you can realize the value very quickly. So, I mean, I'll stop there, and hopefully you see both the value of the platform, the strength. If you've come from the world where you've deployed some of these BCP strategies, from these work from home strategies or VPN, you're still on that technology. Despite the fact that you're still using it, maybe you would want to try and see the difference for yourself. And the great thing with Azure, it's pay-per-use. It's definitely worth to understand what the potential and what the value could be for your end users. So with that, I'll just stop sharing, and maybe we could go through a demo. All right. I guess it's, should I turn over to you, Hani, or Ravi?
Let's do it. I'll share from my side. Ravi, let me know if you're still there. Can feel free to add.
Yep, I'm here. I'm here, no problem.
You able to see my screen? Awesome.
Yep, I can.
Right, so great point, Jonathan. Right, and that's why SoftwareOne is an amazing partner, because they have these great getting started packages that can get you up and running quickly. Very 2 quick points before the demo is that we talked a lot about the native Windows Virtual Desktop experience on Azure. We also work. Citrix is a great partner of ours, and we actually have solution where whether we go and host Citrix on Azure or want to integrate Citrix and WVD, so have a WVD workspaces within Citrix, this is things that we can enable for you. And also, if your preference is that you don't want to go and I want to create my infrastructure and worry about migrating from VMware or System Center virtualized environment and having to create these things on Azure, I'm not experienced. I've never worked on Azure or on cloud before. We actually can host your environment today on VMware on Azure. So the same experience that you have from being a VMware administrator doesn't change, right? So this way you have a fully managed service with WVD. You have an infrastructure that looks exactly like you have it today, but it's running on cloud. I think the case just justifies itself, right? From what you can achieve here and how quickly you can set these things up. Here's my remote desktop. This is my thin client, one of the thin clients that you can use. You can see that I already have applications that I can connect immediately to. So I connect them to PowerPoint or Outlook or Excel or other application that I may have directly without opening a session, without opening this remote desktop session to log in into a machine that is running on a WVD servers. So and and I can pin this particular application directly into my taskbar here, so I don't even have to open the remote desktop client. Here you can see the user that I'm logged in, and here the environment that I am connecting to. And then if I double click here on to be able to remotely log in into this particular server, you immediately see familiar Windows 10 environment, my application is present, and even not just that, but if I go and I try to open Explorer here, you can see that my different the devices and the drivers that I have in this particular machine I'm connected, but it also redirected the drivers and the folders that I have on my desktop that I'm logging in from, right? And that's great, so I don't have to worry about moving files and data back and forth. Now, obviously for IT administrators that are always security conscious, and they will say, well, that's actually a problem. Obviously, you can disable this, but we wanted to demonstrate the flexibility and how easy it is just to be able to redirect drivers and folders to your environment here that you're connecting to remotely. Ravi, do you want to add anything from your perspective here?
Yeah, sure, Hani. So apart from the drive redirection, there are a whole bunch of redirections possible. For example, what we call as clipboard redirection, the ability to copy content between the end user's device and WVD, which can be enabled or disabled. We have the capability to redirect USB devices like biometrics, smart card reader, or external hard drives, etc. Those can be redirected as well. We can also redirect any printers or printer drivers that are connected to end users device to the WVD virtual machine as well. So all these are definitely possible from within that. And of course, for companies or administrators that don't want to do all these redirections, they can be disabled at a Azure portal level itself, and they can be disabled or enabled using GPOs as well. So it gives you that flexibility. The point to take home is the flexibility in terms of how you configure it and what are the options you have. And just like the machine that Hani is showing in your screen, I can swap out this. This is a typical D series virtual machine, which is optimized for compute workload, which is CPU intensive workload. Now, if I want a GPU virtual machine in this place, I can simply swap out, or I can create a new collection called host pool with GPU virtual machines. I mean, I don't even need to create a bunch of virtual machines. I can create a single GPU virtual machine, use it for say 2 months or 3 months for the work every day from 9 to 5, shut it down, and once I'm done, I can delete it so that the companies don't have to procure specialized hardware for it. They pay only for the duration that that is needed, and everything comes with the cloud advantage, where you can scale to hundreds of thousands of virtual machines within a matter of day or two. You can pick and choose the options that you want, the type of configuration of the virtual machines that you want. And you can combine them with multitude of Azure services, be it monitoring or security. Windows 10 comes with Windows Defender. Now you can go one step above and procure Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection that helps you give additional layer of security, and it can integrate with Azure Security Center, that gives you the real-time intelligence that you need to hunt threats and basically make sure that your environment is secure. And obviously, I did mention about the encryption that you can do for the storage accounts where the profile is stored, so that none of the data that your contractors, partners, or end users are working on gets copied outside of the environment. Everything is centrally stored and everything is managed by IT. So it gives the ultimate level of control on the data that the company needs with the flexibility of cloud. And at the same time, it also allows you to integrate with a number of Azure and Office 365 service. So with add-ons like FSLogix, you spend very little in terms of the storage requirement. Instead of going for SSD type of storage, which you might be doing in your on-prem VDI solution, you can go for HDD solution, because for a profile that needs 10 IOPS, if you are familiar with that, in on-premise, FSLogix requires anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 IOPS. So that's a remarkable 1/4 reduction in the storage.
Yeah.
And essentially that gives you the flexibility to pick and choose the right solution that you need. So that's pretty much the comment that I wanted to make.
Awesome. Great conclusion. Finishing on a strong note. I'll pass it to you, Jonathan, just if you have any wrap up or any questions as well. Happy to take them from the team.
Yeah, maybe we just, I don't see many questions in chat. If you have any questions, and I do apologize, we've gone out of time. It was just a lot of great content that we were sharing, and thank you so much for the demo. But if you have any questions, right now I appreciate everyone is probably late for their next meeting. But if you have, please, the chat is available. Please do ask. Okay. I don't see any questions at all, and I realize we've gone 12 minutes over time. So if you have any questions, and maybe you've seen it and something does come up, please do reach out. We will send out how best to reach out, and if we can help you. And we've seen customers scale from initial 25 users. I just was working one in Malaysia. Now the adaptability and flexibility and the security, they've scaled to over 1,000 now, and they're really seeing the benefits. So if you do have, you want to try, or you want to see what value you can add to your organization, please do reach out. Other than that, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thanks very much, Hani, and thanks so much, Ravi, for jumping on at last minute.
Jonathan, would you like to share your
Okay.
email ID and everything with the attendees to share any feedback or suggestions on the chat window?
Sure thing.
Yeah.
I will just I've sent my my email address in the chat window. So any questions at all, or if you want to reach out for anything else on the Azure platform, doesn't have to be WVD. Please do reach out, and thank you very much for attending, everyone.
So to wrap up, thank you once again to all the attendees for listening to the webinar and attending this. And I'll share the feedback form with you. So please fill up that, and we will be taking the survey questions.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.